Welcome everyone to another Pixelated review. I'm your host, Pixelated Jordan. So, we have here another full series review with the Arcanist, hold on. It's called the Frith Chronicles. Yeah, it kinda took me a long time to figure out that's what it was called. Did not know that. Anyway, this is the Frith Chronicles. It is about, basically, I guess if you want to sum it up in a very short term, pirates and fantasy and Pokemon. Alright, and we got it? Did you guys get it? Alright, cool. So basically fantasy Pokemon. I know when I first thought about it, I was like, that just sounds like Pokemon. Then I realized technically Pokemon's a sci-fi. Because, technology and stuff. This one's, a little bit more fantasy and piratey. So, yeah. But anyway, this one's been on my radar for a long time. Then I saw the series was finished and I was like, you know what? Let me check it out. Let me see what it's about. Let me get everything all together here. So I decided to. And I read the complete series. And as usual, these full spoiler reviews is in the series. Because can't tell the whole series without spoiling everything, But yeah, I really want to express this, just so you know. I think that's about it. I got nothing else to really say other than I've been looking forward to reading this, and I'm happy I did. So, without further ado, let's start the review. Book 1, Knightmare Arcanist. So what we have here was an amazing opening with phoenixes and things you could bond with. It's actually really cool because, you bond with these creatures, and not only do you get a bond, kind of like Pokemon, like I said before, but you also get this power from them. So let's say if you had a Pikachu, right? Well, guess what? You probably get to shoot lightnings. I don't know if you're any faster, but you get to shoot lightnings. That would be pretty cool. And we do open up with this character, our main character, Volk Savant, and he wanted to be an Arcanist, but he was like a garbage guy, or no, he was a morgue guy, dealing with bodies and dead bodies and stuff like that. In this little island he's had, and he's on, they're like, no, he's bottom barrel. We can't have him be an Arcanist. Anyway, middle plot, he becomes the Knightmare Arcanist. And the Knightmare Arcanist is awesome. He's second bonded, and that's a whole nother thing, but just let you know, it hurts him when he uses any power. So that's a fun thing. Any Hoosers, we have more fun little things about this world being built up to a awesome standard. We get to the guilds after each Arcanist. There was this big old ceremony with the phoenixes, and then 2 people were picked. Then we have our main character, and then basically the second main character. She's on there too. She's got a little teleporting guy, and he's pretty cool. I like him a lot. Point is though, middle plot. They get to this place for a guild, and the Frith Guild is where the main of the chunk of the story takes place, or generally, because that's where everyone gets training and stuff like that. Generally, it's a lot of things. Normally, I'm pretty bugged about, training in my first book to explain everything. If you have anything idea about Eon Legion, how much I got bugged with that, then you already understand. But there was a much more bigger purpose to this, and the characters were fun. The creatures were also really fun too. I really like that. There's also a plague, which, man, that was terrifying the first time you meet one of these plague creatures. Terrifying. But generally the story was a lot of fun, had a lot of heart, and I just sat there at the end of the story, I enjoyed this childlike wonder to the story, and I really wanted to be that Arcanist. I'm like, man, I would love this. If I saw this in the movies or a TV show as a kid, you would be seeing me playing an Arcanist role on the playground. So I really just felt it contagious in this first book. So absolutely had to say it. When it comes to overall plot, it wasn't stellar or anything. You can kind of where things were going, but that's really about it. I mean, it's very simple for the most part, but it does it in the right amount of way that I can't really blame it. It had so much fun, and I had this childlike wonder, which I was like, I want to be an Arcanist. So, with that being said, just like Skullduggery Pleasant, this book gets its own rating. For the rating of Knightmare Arcanist, it gets a rating of I want to be an Arcanist. Book 2, Dread Pirate Arcanist. You know what's hard for sequels to do? Really carry the momentum of what the first book made it special and keep going with that. Well, guess what? They kept going. The Arcanist series, Frith Chronicles series, kept going with the magic. And it just was fun, and there was introducing to new abilities for characters, revelations for characters, and just overall good world building I just generally loved. Even god creatures was something I wasn't expecting, but here we are. It really just, it's just so much enjoyment here that I had so much fun, and especially when we got to these serious moments with the Dread Pirates, and that, wow, that was something else. Like, let me tell you, that was definitely something else. But overall, this was just a fun, just great book that I can't just put it down. I'm very happy that the magic, what happened in the first book was carried over to this, and it just keeps me eager, wanting to keep reading. And I was like, man, this is great. I love this. This makes me feel great. So yeah, definitely have to say this was fun, pirates, and yeah, and more abilities and world building and god. Oh, also there's a crafting system in here, which is I wasn't expecting, but you can make items in this universe, which is pretty cool. I hope there's a game of it because this sounds pretty awesome and I would definitely play it. So with that being said, let's rate this guy for the rating of Dread Pirate Arcanist. It gets a rating of I recommend it. Book 3, Coliseum Arcanist. Normally when you have a tournament, usually it can be boring, great, or whatever down the middle. This was one of the great ones though, let me just put it out there. I really enjoyed the tournament style. It had a lot of fun and just these different things building up to like a bigger obstacle in the end. And we ended up learning more about the world. One of the characters has just a dad that just, yeah, he's a mad scientist, and we already know where that's going. So that's already fun. And we got this kind of like a bestiary of creatures, which was so cool. I like, you know, the character Volk Savan is just reading this, all this stuff about different creatures and stuff like that. And, you know, it's just kind of like, I guess, exposition, lore dumping and stuff like that. But I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely intrigued by it because I just kept, oh my god, that's interesting. Oh wow, they can do it. Like, I really like that a lot. And like, there's a tier system, and our buddy Knightmare Arcanist, yeah, he's below a dragon tier, so that's kind of cool. Let me tell you. Oh man, and I definitely got to mention though that our knight in dark armor, he is awesome. Like, I love the shadow abilities, love the terror abilities. Absolutely, I would like to bond with that guy. Man, they're good. It was so good though, and this is where it's gonna mark a different shift in the story, because when it got to the climax, man, did it just get dark. But it didn't feel forced, but it felt very natural to the story, and I really did like it because it's just growing about this plague, and yeah, and then the ending of it where our main character gets infected, that was something to think about, which was absolutely amazing. So, you know, in the first book we kill his hero, which was very sad for, you know, him, because he looked up to him. Second one, we just barely escaped the Dread Pirate, which was also awesome. And this one, our main character gets infected with the plague. Gotta admit, that was awesome. So it does mark a different shift of the story, but it still is enjoyable. So that being said, I will give Coliseum Arcanist a rating of I recommend it. Book 4, Plague Arcanist. I have to admit, even though the stakes were high in this one because of our limited time with our main character, if he was affected, he's got, I think it said about a month to live or something like that. I can't remember. Or not live, until he's fully affected, like with the plague being driven and crazy and all that stuff. Same thing with his guy he used to look up to as a kid. But this one was a kind of a slow ride. There was a chance at curing his plague by bonding with these, what is it called? I can't remember what the creature's called, but they're beetle creatures that were like the Egyptian ones looking. That's why I can't remember the name. But anyways, those guys, they can revive and stuff like that, renewal, something like, kind of like time reversal, I guess is the gist of it. And it was absolutely a really cool thing that they had there. So It was all about like trying to heal Volk in one way or another, and they were trying to figure it out, but trying to get him to get healed right away was kind of slow going, but it made sense for the lore because lore dump was amazing. But when it got to like overall story, it was based a little slow. We did get to know Volk's father and Volk's, because his dad obviously left because of course they do. But it was generally just a cool thing. We got to learn about blue phoenixes. That was cool. And then we got to climax. That's where I think this book really just nailed it. It was just this epic climax that Volk helped his friends as much as he can to just save their lives, even though he was infected. And even our dark, shining knight guy got infected in the end. But once they did that, they were like down and out, and they were ready to get, they're fighting for their life. Well, they're fighting to die anyway at that point, fighting these plague creatures all around them. And then they get their pure form, and that's what got rid of it. And that was so cool. And I gotta admit, that was like the coolest thing I've ever seen. Just they get pure form, and they start just wailing on everything because they can't get infected. And that was so cool, and I gotta admit, that's what made this whole book better. So, with that being said, Plague Arcanist gets a rating of I recommend it. Book 5, World Serpent Arcanist. So, starting in the second book, we were talking about God Arcanists, or more God creatures, and there could be Arcanists of them. They kind of shaped the world before, where this is taking place. And so they've been fighting this war based, in a sense, a war against the Artark, which we were introduced into the fourth book. Basically, they just want to change the world. They wanted to bond with all the creatures, God creatures, as much as they can. The Artark is able to because he has this creature that will be able to bond with multiple different creatures at once. And that was a thing. But anyway, that's what the war is about. And this right here, we get to see where that our first peek into the god creature, the World Serpent. And that World Serpent's able to change lands and just destroy land if it wants to at will, which is pretty darn cool. I have to admit though, the book was dragged a bit and had some teen drama, which I wasn't here for because I was like, why are we talking about this now? We're literally in the middle of a war. I know they're all teens, but still. It just was like kind of boring when it got to that point. And one of the love interests, she's bonding with the Phoenix, and she's just trying to get the pure form. Like Volk got his pure form with his knight, but it was kind of just But once we got to the World Serpent part, and there was another boy that was gonna bond with him. Oh man, that was crazy actually. Holy crap. That whole journey getting through the World Serpent's lair, it's basically trial worth, to bond with the creature. And it was just epic. And once it got to that end, man, that they were just fighting like literally teeth and nail to get to that one last leg of stretch just to win. And my boy, my Dark Knight in dark armor, he sadly sacrificed himself to let Volk move forward. It was sad. I was so sad to see it, and it marks a heavy change in the series because of how much we, as the reader, bonded with him. And it's just when it hits, it's something I wasn't prepared for. But that's when we reach the World Serpent Arcanist, and we find out Volk was the one who was supposed to bond, and the guy who was there was not. So, and we do get another little climax at the end to finish off everything, and. Yeah, and then this marks the change into the series where now we're entering a god territory, which was something I wasn't prepared for. One thing for sure is that the Arcanist mark is on their chest instead of their head. So that's cool, baller. And yeah, so it's going to be very different to see where this series can go because of how big change it made with our knight falling and now becoming a god. So yeah, this was a heavy change, but it was such an amazing story that it's hard for me to say. I cannot give this a rating of I recommend it. Book 6, Warlord Arcanist. As the next entry we get here is the middle of the book, and it's very middling, if that makes sense. I guess my only problem with this middle book is that it just not a lot happens, but stuff does happen, if that makes sense. It's that, like, it does get into, like, the more politic of the world's view and stuff like that and how it works, which makes sense. You know, you kind of want this world serpent guy who can reshape, lands to be on his good side, you know? But even that being said, I just, like, it's alright. Kind of boring. There is some action pieces here and there before the climax of the story. It's just that it wasn't as good as I was hoping it could have been. And that's where we have the problem with this one, because it's not as good as what came before. Not terrible. Let me put it that way. It's just what came before is not as good as what we got in this one. And when it comes to Volk being a world serpent arcanist, you know, a warlord, a god arcanist, he feels very weak by comparison. Now I understand that, you know, you gotta, you know, build up the magic and blah 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 and stuff like that. I get it. I'm not saying that doesn't make any sense, because you gotta pick between destruction or creation, which makes sense. And the problem I face with this right here is because they didn't feel so godly. I guess that's my only issue. Like, the introduction, I was like, okay, we're ready for something, and then after that, it just felt normal, I guess, in a sense, of a regular arcanist. Like, I would assume there was just like this base stat of being a god arcanist, that you're just physically better than everyone else, like stronger, durability, you know, everything. But now he's still kind of okay, you know, he could tank a hit, but not as greater as I assumed he probably would have been, being, you know, the title of God in his name. But hey, whatever. Like I said, not a bad entry. Like, when it came to the end, it really did build up, you know, to this epic climax as usual, but not as good as I would like it to be. We did have a nice solemn ending though for our Dread Pirate. Like, that's been talked about nonstop for the rest of the series, but he was it was really good to see where he went. We got a nice conclusion for that little subplot there, and then we killed one Arcanist, which was super cool. But we ended up getting a tease at something of resurrection, and we're missing our beloved knight in shining armor, darking armor, or however you want to say it. His cape's gone, and that's the last thing we have of him. So yeah, so it does leave us on a cliffhanger. It's just that this book is very middling by comparison from everything else. So, with that being said, Warlord Arcanist gets a rating of... check it out. Book 7, Master Arcanist. This book is just about the same as the one that came before. There's a lot of middle parts, which kind of sucks, which dragged it a bit longer. But it's not bad. Like I said, it's still not bad. It's just not as good as what came before. I think the issue I'm having is because now we're gathering the god creatures, but it's going by really, really fast. And I get it, you know, you're trying to make sure you build up to the end. The problem is, it's just that, it just, like, what we got for the World Serpent Arcanist, how much it was a struggle, and just getting there was such half the battle. And then we get to this, to the next ones, where another main character, he gets the bond with the cool wolf, which is really cool. I mean, there was a sacrifice because he was infected, and so was the other guy, and it was sad to see another main character creature go, but it was just sad to see it all just kind of come together, which really is sad, you know. And it get me to a point like, okay, how are they gonna get to the end point where it's called the Apox Dragon? I haven't talked about it, but when the God Arcanist exists, the Apox Dragon comes to kill them all because of reasons, let's say for right now. And for the reasons, it was, yeah, okay, I understand, but, I don't know. I just feel like this should take a little longer. And I know there's a sequel series, so when I was reading this, I just assumed maybe that's the sequel series fighting the Apox Dragon. Anyways, getting off topic here. Point is, the plot of this was really good. It does have some good points where it comes to, like, you know, building the lore, finding out these other arcanists, god creatures, and getting someone to bond with them, and then, you know, just building up to that point. And now we know that what these god arcanists are meant to do is to create something new to stop this plague. So, and that was the big part. So, trying to figure out what it was. And because now the arcane plague can now affect even pure creatures now. So now it's getting to a point where it's getting a little bit more serious than it was before. So, you say, yeah, maybe you need to figure it out. And that's where we kind of found out where our dearest boy, Dark and Shiny Armor, was at, which is that. But overall, this was a good adventure still. Just not as good as what came before. We ended up getting, I think, 2 or 3 God Arcanics on the hero side. So, that's kind of the thing. It was very fast. But other than that, though, yeah. For Master Arcanist, it gets a rating of... Check it out. Book 8. Grandmaster Arcanist. And this is the end right here. The pacing of it was all over the place, kind of. It was slow in some parts and fast in others, because we're still trying to capture all the God Arcanists. Now, as far as the Artark goes, kind of sucked, actually. I know he was built up throughout the book, basically starting, I think, from book 4 is when we first meet him and generally talked about. Or 3, I think it was 3 was generally talked about. 4 was building up, we first see him. Point is, it's not as good as what I was hoping for. Yeah, I mean, he's the end-all be-all boss, but there was other antagonists we had before him that they were better. Like, arguably better. Yeah, you could argue like, oh yeah, it was built up. Yeah, but we didn't really get to see his power. We didn't get to really understand him, like, overall. We just knew he wanted to destroy everything to gain the power of all the God Arcanists. That's about it. And it was just kind of okay, and, having a villain just to be the, villain, which is fine, but I guess I was expecting so much more because of how much other complex characters they had before this one was just very simple, and I was kind of hoping a little bit more, or maybe we just get a little bit more action for him before we had the big epic climax. But other than that, like I said, it was built pretty well, overall as a general good story. It's built overall, just wished we got to experience a little bit more of the Artark. Now, as far as the actual ending goes, because there's an epilogue with the Apox Dragon, I have to admit, it was a beautiful ending. It really was. And what I was expecting, and I think everyone was expecting from this big freaking dragon, they're expecting something amazing to happen in the end. But no, it ended up being a really beautiful end. And the way it ends and how it transitioned to technically its sequel, which I haven't read yet, but I looked at it, it's actually a really cool way to end the series. So, for this main time, yeah, this is actually a really beautiful ending. It's just that the majority of the book has a bit of a pacing issue. In the Artark, it just wasn't as great as it could have been. But the ending does make it beautiful. So, with that being said, I will give Grandmaster Arcanist a rating of... Check it out. Overall, this is an absolute fun adventure. I really can't say anything else about that, This had some magic that I haven't read for some time. I mean, Skullduggery is amazing. I love Skullduggery. But this had this childlike wonder that just found infectious, Something I liked to compare it to, like Fablehaven or Cove, this childlike wonder to it. But it took an identity on its own, and it just made me sit there and say, I want to be an Arcanist. Something similar to, I want to be a Pokemon trainer. I want to be a wizard. I want to be a Yu-Gi-Oh! Master, stuff like that. And that's something to say, if a series can make makes you want to say, I want to be that, that's got to be something special. And I have to admit, yeah, I would love to be an Arcanist right now. As an adult right now, I would love to go out there and go bond with some random creature out there, go like, yeah, we're going to be together and we're going to do some crazy stuff. It'd be cool. I'm just saying, it would be absolutely amazing to experience that right there. And that's the best part about this series. It just captures this magic of just wanting to be that thing in the series. And when it comes to the Frith Guild, that's where I guess you could say the majority of the time takes place. It's about the Frith Guild. They're going on the adventures. They're building up all that stuff. Personally, I think it should just be called the Arcanist trilogy, or not trilogy, Chronicles, because it's more about the Arcanist than it is about the Frith Guild. It's like calling Harry Potter Gryffindor Guild. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to me, But with that being said, though, I really do think this is enjoyable. If you enjoy YA books, yeah, get this series. It's amazing. I love it. It's absolutely something I can recommend. And if I ever see this in movies, a bestiary, which I did miss out on the Patreon, which sucks. Not Patreon, what's the other one? Kickstarter, which kind of sucks. I wish I got to that. And just card games or whatever, video game. I am here for it. I would love to see this hit that kind of level, and I think it has the star power to do so. So, as a final rating, for the Frith Chronicles, I will give it a rating of I recommend it. Thank you for watching. Hi, I want to thank you guys all for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will link all these books down below. And if you want to watch more series and book reviews, I have plenty more in a playlist here. Also, did you know I too am an author? That's right. If you like YA paranormal adventures with ghosts, I got you covered. In my book, Unborn Ghost. If you're interested in paranormal, go ahead and get it. I will link that too down below. And as always, thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.